It's time for Money Matters with the Vernon Building Society, and Ian Keeling joins me from the lender. Ian, today we're going to talk about mortgages and specifically about first-time buyers who I think you're finding coming through the doors later and later in life now. Mortgage used to be something you got in your early 20s. A lot of people now are having to wait until perhaps even their mid-30s before they can find their first house.
Right, Pete. Hi, by the way. Yes, absolutely. We're finding the age at which people buy is definitely pushing further into the 30s, and it doesn't look to be changing. It's getting later and later. It's interesting. We've recently picked up on a survey by the Building Societies Association, which is showing the other effect of that, which is that many 25 to 34-year-olds, in fact, around half of them, expect to still have a mortgage when they're retired. So we're seeing a completely shift in the way the housing and mortgage market's working.
And that is quite interesting, and it's perhaps something that is overlooked. Normally a 25-year mortgage, in the old days, you got that at 25, you therefore paid it off by the time you were 50, and you actually had a bit of time to build up a bit of more of a nest egg before you retired at maybe 60 or 65. But if you simply do the maths, as you quite rightly point out, you may have retired before you've paid off your mortgage, and well, that's going to be an issue because you're reliant on your income from your job to pay off your mortgage.
That's right. Or if you're going to have a mortgage in retirement, then certainly you've got a need for pension income. I mean, I think if we look at the driving factors behind this, one issue, of course, is house prices, and house prices are so much higher than they were in relation to the average income. So a couple of stats for the statos out there. In '93, the average house price was 3 times the average income. Last year, it was 6.9 times. So I think you can see there the real challenges that are being faced. This is then having a further effect in that you just mentioned then buying, say, at 25 and paying off by 50. So someone might be buying now at 35 and they're probably taking a 30-year term. We're even seeing 35 and 40-year terms in the industry. So that in itself is becoming an issue. And again, why they're doing that? Because it makes the monthly cost cheaper, because it's very difficult to afford such high house prices. So fundamentally, these are the issues involved.
It also used to be the case, Ian, that you pretty much knew when you were going to retire. Certainly if you were in the public sector or if you were in a company pension scheme, you knew your retirement date, sometimes the first day that you started the job. That's not the case anymore.
No, certainly, go back years and many people had final salary schemes that were very much defined. They did 40 years service and they came away knowing what they were going to be paid as well at the end. So maybe even up to 2/3 of their final salary. That's completely changed. Nowadays, those sort of pension schemes have largely disappeared. Most people are on a defined contribution pension scheme, which means effectively they know how much they're putting in, but they don't know what it's going to be paying out at the end. And people are having to work longer, and that retirement date has kind of shifted. I mean, age equality laws came in a couple of years ago. It was probably more like 4 years ago. But, they're important laws. But what they meant was no longer could any firm say, our retirement date is 60 or 65. Now an individual has the right to say, look, I'm fit to work. I want to carry on working. And there'd have to be a very good reason for an employer to say, no, you can't.
These factors that we're talking about, it makes it quite an interesting time for lenders. I'm sure that the midnight oil is being burnt at your offices to therefore try and come up with products and strategies that allow people to still look to buy houses, because it's something that we all want to do, but at the same time to do so affordably, and also to do so with perhaps one eye on when are you going to give up work, are you going to be able to afford repayments in your retirement?
There is a lot of work going on in the industry to try and address this issue. I think our spokespeople at the Building Societies Association said the government, regulators and the industry really need to get together and try and tackle it. And certainly there are working groups with the BSA and the Council of Mortgage Lenders who are looking at this very issue. It's tricky for lenders because, as we said there, we don't know exactly when someone's going to retire. We can't tell exactly how much income they'll have. We've got to sort of take a reasonable view on whether they're likely to be able to afford a mortgage in retirement based on the income based on the pension contributions that they're making. But there's no guarantees those pension contributions don't change as we go further down the line and people's circumstances change. So it is an area that lenders are fairly nervous of, but the sector does need to be more flexible. What we're tending to find is smaller building societies like ourselves, if I may plug us, but we tend to be more flexible and look at individual circumstances, whereas big lenders, very large lenders, tend to work on almost a production line type basis. So anything that's slightly unusual, like something extended into retirement, can be even more tricky for them. They've got to have fairly firm policies, whereas we can sort of take a more wider view of a case, and that's the same with quite a few smaller building societies. So I mean, I guess out of that was come sort of innovation and what sort of products can be created out there.
Well, we are talking mortgages today with one eye very much on the future with Ian Keeling of the Vernon Building Society. It's Money Matters here on Pure 107.8 FM.
The Vernon offer better mortgage deals for local people. Claire Sutton from Poynton told us her story.
My parents spoke very highly of the Vernon, especially around ethics and personal service. The Vernon team has always been incredibly friendly and helpful. There's nothing corporate about how they deal with you. They make it personal and it matters.
The Vernon, Stockport's local building society, reserve their very best mortgage deals for those living within 25 miles of Stockport. If you're looking to remortgage or perhaps you're moving house, find out if you qualify for a better mortgage deal at your local branch or visit thevernon.co.uk. Offer applies to selected mortgages only.
It's Money Matters here on Pure 107.8 FM in association with the Vernon Building Society, and Ian Keeling from the lender is my studio guest. And so we've already been talking this hour about mortgages and some of the issues that the industry is facing when people perhaps in their mid-30s are first-time buyers and coming through the door to talk about that mortgage, and they have to think about not just paying it off while they're in work, but what might happen if they've still got a bit left to pay off in their retirement. Ian, this is something that the industry is looking at. We have an ageing population. This is a problem not unique to Stockport, and there are some industry-wide solutions.
There are a few innovative solutions being developed. We've seen two sort of approaches to it. One is to try and help younger people onto the ladder earlier in life, and this often relies on parental support. What we're seeing, more first-time buyers are having to buy houses with deposits gifted by parents or grandparents or other family. Which is tricky because that relies on having a family member with that sort of cash to spare and who can afford to give it up. So we've seen a couple of products develop. We've developed one ourselves, which is a help to buy, a family assist mortgage. The way this fundamentally works is it allows someone to gift around 20% of the value of the house. When I say gift, they effectively place it into a deposit alongside the mortgage for a period of 4 years. After 4 years, assuming the mortgage payments have all been made, the helper gets the money back. So that's quite useful for someone who says, look, this is my nest egg, this is for my retirement, I can't afford to give it up, but what I can do is I can give it to you for 4 years and then at the end of it, you're on the property ladder and you're away. That's one solution. Another really interesting one that I've seen is from a small lender called the Bath Building Society, and they do a buy for uni mortgage. So a student going away can actually buy a house. How is it paid? Well, they effectively rent maybe 2 or 3 rooms out while they live there, while they're at university, and that covers the mortgage. Behind it sits a parental guarantee. So again, really clever innovation, allowing someone at a very early stage in life to get onto that ladder and to start paying off, a principal debt on a home, which is really important. The other side we've seen is the other end of the spectrum where, we're talking about people in their 30s and 40s now, but there are already quite a significant number of people in the population who want mortgages in retirement now. So we've felt that as a lender. We see more people coming to us who are already retired. They may well have significant wealth tied up in an existing property, and they want to release some of that in order to help fund their retirement and so on. So there are mortgage schemes being developed there. We're looking at one where if someone's got pension income, they could effectively pay the interest on the mortgage, but not actually pay off the debt. The debt itself is paid off by the house at the end, and when I say the end, when they either die or go into alternative accommodation. So things like that can then help fund retirement. So you can see how there's no longer a traditional, here's a mortgage, till you retire, you stop, and then you've got your house paid off. Everything's great. The whole lines are getting blurred. Everything's going a little bit grey between retirement and working now.
Definitely, therefore, worth a conversation with independent financial advisors or lenders, particularly if you're feeling that you're in a situation where you don't have many options. As Ian was saying, the products there are now out there from the lenders that might be the solution. And it's also fair to say the government are trying to do their bit through Help to Buy.
Yes, the government have tried to help first-time buyers. There's been a couple of Help to Buy schemes which have allowed borrowers to borrow sort of up to 95% mortgages. So they've made the supply of 95% mortgages far more available within the market. And a more significant announcement was for would-be first-time buyers. Come this autumn, there's going to be a product called Help to Buy ISA available. Now, this is one where the government and will effectively provide a bonus on your savings, so you can save with a Help to Buy ISA, and up to 25% of what you save can then be granted as extra cash from the government, up to a maximum of £3,000. So that's quite an interesting scheme. It would take sort of to get the maximum bonus a period of around 4 years of saving to do it, but I'm sure if someone's got that longer term plan, then it's definitely a product they should be looking at. This is free cash; you don't have to pay it back. It's great. That's okay. I mean, I guess what all these things do is they help to stimulate further demand for housing. You could argue that's not necessarily a good thing, because if you increase the demand for something, the price goes up. So what we're potentially doing with schemes to assist, or government schemes to assist, is driving prices up further, which can actually make the problem worse. I guess sitting behind it all, if you're talking about supply and demand, is there's an insufficient supply of housing in the market. And what we need to do, and I think everybody accepts we need to do, is that the government needs to create an environment where more houses are being built, far more houses are being built in order to meet this demand. That would help over the longer term the house prices to come into some sort of line with income again, and make things more affordable and better for everyone.
And just finally, Ian, we've been talking about the support that the government and lenders can offer, but borrowers themselves do need to be responsible and do need to ask themselves some key questions.
Yes, I think certainly, we've had years of low interest rates. I would say any borrower at the moment with a longer term mortgage, potentially stretching into retirement, should consider making extra payments. Or those taking mortgages out, don't just automatically say, what's the longest term? I'll take a 30-year term. Have a look at the costs of an earlier one, 20, 25 years. Sometimes it's not as much as you think. And if you can do that, you can save thousands in interest, and of course you can clear that millstone of the mortgage from around your neck, and you can retire perhaps a little bit earlier than otherwise you would have done. That's a really important thing to consider. Just try and get this debt paid off. And then the other thing is for the ones who are looking to buy in the future, is to save as hard as you can in order to get that deposit and reduce the amount you need to borrow. Do that through Help to Buy ISA when that comes out in the autumn, or other there are regular saving schemes which also provide bonuses on taking a mortgage out, which can be considered as well.
Some really good advice, and I hope that we've answered some questions and given you some food for thought if you are or know of first-time buyers here in Stockport. It's Money Matters in association with the Vernon Building Society here on Pure 107.8 FM.